Hello and welcome to Survivor Everything. I'm your host Liam, and we have 3 more episodes of Australian Survivor, Australia versus the World to cover. Now I've been having a lot of fun with the show so far, and it's a way better season than Survivor 48. But I still had a lot of issues with it still. As I said in my last episode, I find it'll probably be easier to fix during the merge, so we have one more episode before that, so let's see how it goes. I'll be covering each episode right after I watch them, so I won't have any information from the next episode to go off of. So if I'm wrong about something and it gets covered in the next one, we'll just learn as it goes along. With all that said, let's talk about episodes 4 through 6 and what I think about them.
We've just killed the king. I definitely feel like a bit of a savage. George was so excited about completing 100 days of Survivor.
Episode 4 follows both tribes, as this episode is going to send both tribes to tribal council, putting almost every player at risk to go home. On the Aussie tribe, Sarah's paranoia of Kirby being closer with Shawnee than her starts to rise to its boiling point. Sarah decides that she needs to start making some backup plans in case all this goes awry, so she decides to talk with the enemy and Janine, who is playing on the bottom with Luke. Sarah brings up that her relationship with Kirby is waning, and almost slips up that she could target Kirby next, but changes it to Shawnee. Of course, like usual, Shawnee's getting brought up as a target, and just like the 2 previous episodes, nothing will come of it. The idea of using Shawnee as a decoy target is getting a little old now, but it still proves my point that Shawnee is being in the final 2 with all this attention that players in the edit are just giving her. Janine relies Sarah's info to Luke, and in a very cunning and conniving move, the 2 decide to feed this to Kirby and have her form an alliance with them to take out Sarah. Sarah was given the edit that she didn't want, a flip-flop edit, and seemed untrustworthy, like she did in her original season apparently. But her constant lack of confidence in her own moves, and her doubt in her alliance members, has made a target on her back and viewed how she was before. Sarah's game is tanking before our very eyes. On the World Tribe, Tony is having as much luck as Sarah is. Tony is playing it cool and collected, and is correctly reading that the girls have started an all-girls alliance, and he needs to start making some moves now or he is likely to go home next. Tony tries to work with Tommy as much as possible here, but Tommy not only doesn't seem to care to work with Tony, but he doesn't seem to care about anything in this game so far the way he is playing. Parvati and Suri do think that they go back to Tribal Council. They'd rather keep Tony for the US advantage, but Cass and Lisa want to keep Tommy in order to keep the national player advantage. Tony will also make the correct read during this episode to stay around the girls at all time, so they don't have a chance to throw his name out there as an option, so it'll be more likely Tommy if anyone does go.
We're trying to keep Tony for the same reason Lisa and Cass are trying to keep Tommy, so everybody's trying to play it cool, and so am I like, oh, it's definitely us versus them.
At the Immunity Challenge, it becomes an endurance challenge where both tribes will go to Tribal, and both tribes will be competing for a player on each tribe to win individual immunity. This challenge, they have to hold a box in one spot with just their feet while their legs are outstretched, and with no shock, Parvati wins. This challenge was interesting in the fact that in the last endurance challenge, Luke was making a lot of groans and gas during it, but he was going for over an hour, while in this challenge, he is screaming off the top of his lungs, and he is the first one out in like 5 minutes. It was just jarring to see, but it was also very funny as well. We also see that Sarah, the target for the Aussie tribe, outlasts her entire tribe, winning herself individual immunity. Surprisingly, by the time every Aussie tribe member has dropped out, not a single world player has left the challenge, with all of them staying there until the final round where only one foot can be on the block with no hands touching the platforms as well. When it was just down to Parvati and Cass, Parvati strikes a deal that Cass refuses. But you can tell later on that Cass wishes she had taken it, and she realized that she can't outlast Parvati and, takes the deal right before dropping, which I don't know if I would have let happen. Cass was being real sketchy there, and she pulled off a little bit of a snake move, if you ask me. I'm actually shocked that Parvati said she would uphold the deal right before Cass dropped after Cass pulled this. But now, both tribes are going to Tribal Council, and Sarah and Parvati are the only ones who are safe, but only one person is going home apparently.
Jonathan's saying both tribes are going to Tribal Council, but then only one player's getting voted out. And I'm thinking in my head, I don't know what that means.
Back at the Aussie tribe, Shawnee thinks 2 players will be voted out from each tribe separately, and then those 2 players will compete in a fire-making challenge to return to the game, like she saw and experienced in All-Stars. The only content we get from the Aussie tribe really is that Shawnee could be a target, like always, and it could be Janine, but it doesn't matter since we know from the lack of post-immunity challenge content from the Aussie tribe that the World tribe will be the tribe that loses a person tonight, and it's clear who is going home from the edit so far. On the World's tribe, where we get most of the content for this episode, just like we've seen with these lopsided edits, Tony is paranoid. No one is talking to him, and when they aren't convincing at all that it's going to be Tommy who will be the person sent home that night. Tony, like I said earlier, has had a great read about the Girls Alliance, and even has a great read that they found the key to the box since the girls just stopped looking and even talking about it altogether. So he knows the mystery of it is gone, so it's been opened. Tony is really social and strategically savvy here, but production has set him up on a tribe that has screwed him from the start. But I'll get to my rant soon about that. Before Tribal Council, Tony wants to recreate his bag of tricks, and he plants a fake idol in there to use at Tribal Council, which we know won't work since Cass has the real idol.
And all of a sudden, nobody's talking about the box. So I'm pretty certain that Parvati and Cirie found the key. But what am I gonna do? Just sit there and let them vote me out and not try?
At Tribal Council, both tribes show up, and Jonathan explains that they will draw rocks, and the two players from respective teams who draw the white rocks will compete in a fire-making challenge, and the player who wins also wins immunity for their whole tribe. Sarah draws the white rock for the Aussie tribe, and set up by the story, Cirie, the worst fire-maker on the world's tribe, draws the other white rock. Cirie loses in fire-making without starting a single flame to catch on to the coconut husk, and honestly, it was just shameful. You'd think a person who lost in a tie vote Final Four fire-making challenge in their first season would have learned how to make fire with Flynn after the second she got called for her first returnee season. I was actually really annoyed at Cirie here for messing this up, since I knew her poor fire-making skills just sent Tony out the door, and spoilers, he is the one voted out after this. Once Cirie loses, forcing her tribe to vote someone out, it does become chaos. Tony tries to throw Parvati under the bus, but correctly deducing that she was the one who found the key to the box, and wondering if she told the other girls in the alliance, which she had, but it was still a smart attempt from Tony to make. He then pulls out his little bag of tricks and ties a shoe around his neck, claiming it to be the hidden immunity idol. It unfortunately doesn't work, and he is voted out unanimously, with even Tommy gunning him down as well. Tony tried his best play here, but what was production thinking? Not only was the American players outnumbered by the international players, putting them all at risk in day one, but on both tribes there's also a gender imbalance of 4 women and 3 men. And with that, there's been 4 of the 6 men already gone in the first 4 episodes. There was never going to be a world where Tony was safe, especially with American players like Parvati, who would rather align more with the women and take advantage of the men. Tony also came in this game after playing Traitors Season 3, and he was too loyal to Boston Rob and Carolyn just because they had all played Survivor before, and he did the same here with Parvati and Cirie, which is Tony's fault. Tony, if he plays again, will have to be calm and collected on the surface, but he will need to start playing hard out the gate, but he can't be open about it. Since in the last 2 games he's played, his start level has been way too big for him to survive, even with him trying to be normal. He just needs to come in playing a strong social game while being overly strategic on the sidelines and hidden, so he can navigate more votes and create a majority instead of trying to wiggle his way into one.
You can see the pattern going on here. They voted out Rob first, then they voted out the God, then they voted out the King, and then they voted out the 2-time champ, the 2-timer. So there's a pattern here going on. They want to get rid of all the threats. And if that's the case, Parvati should be going next.
At the start of episode 5, the World Tribe talks about the aftermath that was Tony leaving the game during the last Tribal Council, and mentions all the big names are going home early. Parvati says that she is the biggest target left on the board, and she wishes Tony was still in the game as a shield for her, and that she wanted to work with him until the blow-up at Tribal Council occurred. I honestly don't buy it from what we saw during the later half of the last episode, and it seemed like she was ready to cut him at that point, but if she was telling the truth, it means that Parvati is losing control of the original World Tribe. But to be fair, I don't think she's telling the truth here, because she risked her all-girls alliance, which I think she would rather keep. We saw that even though Parvati grabbed the public hidden immunity idol off Jonathan's podium last episode, Cass was also the one who found the immunity idol and is keeping it to herself, as well as saw Parvati grab the public one before they left. Cass also seemed to have swayed Cirie over her during this episode, almost seeming to convince her to drop Parvati as an alliance member and just join her. It's just a good thing Parvati flipped her vote onto Tony, since it seemed like she was going to be able to save him anyways, like she had originally planned.
Well, that was crazy with Tony.
Why do they keep coming for you and then voting for me? Yeah.
We then get the Survivor auction right after this, and this is also the point where the 2 tribes merge. Right at the start of the auction, there's a rolled-up scroll that is revealed, and Tommy immediately bets his entire $500 on it, with Luke on the Aussie tribe jumping on that bandwagon as well. We've seen that Luke has declared himself a loyal player, as he hasn't jumped ship from his failing alliance even though it's been seeking strategically, and he is hoping that the Aussies will still go in 5-strong at the merge, even after all their differences. So I have a very strong guess that Luke thought this would be a clue to an idol or some sort of advantage for the next immunity challenge, and he wanted it for the Aussie tribe and not for Tommy to have it. Luckily for Luke, when him and Tommy draw rocks, Luke draws the winning rock, and it just says to send someone back to camp by themselves so they can't participate in the auction anymore. Luke obviously chooses Parvati, the biggest threat in the World Tribe, so she can't participate in the auction, and no more chance for her to buy any advantages or food to fuel herself. This clearly annoys Parvati, and she is sent back to camp on her lonesome as the auction continues. It's a normal auction afterwards, nothing really too notable, but at one point Shawnee had bought ribs and a beer for $480, only leaving her with 20 left. And then afterwards, a huge chicken club sandwich with fries and a Coke is offered, and Shawnee bids her remaining 20, and is a second away from getting it from the lowest price possible. Only after the reactions of everybody about how low the bet is, Lisa finally decides to bet 40 and gets it at the second lowest price possible, which is still insane to imagine that no one else bid on it. All I can think of is that the clear sign that the players were saving their money for an advantage that never comes, and the auction ends.
Making Merge is always special, but how does it feel making Merge this season?
It feels pretty good. Pretty happy right now.
The advantage that never came at the auction was because it was hidden in a mason jar of cookies back at the merge camp for the player who was sent home by themselves from the auction. Even when Parvati is unlucky, it still turns out to be lucky for her. She gets a note saying that she can share the cookies or keep them for herself, with the shovel next to the jar of cookies in order to hide them. Parvati, after enjoying the spoils of her delicious baked goods, ends up breaking the cookie jar after attempting to bury it in the sand. I don't even know how hard she must have dropped it for that to happen, because it didn't seem like that far of a drop. Luckily she did though, since even when she's unlucky, she's lucky. And she finds an advantage that was hidden in the jar, and it's a knowledge is power, everyone's favorite new era advantage. Just give her the idol nullifier at that point. Parvati though has to quickly bury the broken glass and scattered cookies to hide the evidence, but she is successful for the most part, but with her just hiding the shovel in the jungle. Parvati now has a hidden immunity idol and a knowledge power advantage, so she could be sitting pretty for at least a couple rounds if she plays them right. Let's just talk about the immunity challenge and we'll get to all the strategizing. The immunity challenge is a classic, last gasp, where players must stay under a grate for as long as possible with the rising tide making it harder to breathe. This challenge goes on for a while, and it starts to storm bad. People start to drop out though, and when Parvati does, Jonathan is shocked. Her response here is pretty funny though, like her basically saying, I know you're shocked that the Endurance Queen dropped out so soon in the challenge, but that's not an endurance challenge, that's a torture device.
Parvati. That's a surprise. Wow.
I'm not doing that.
It drops down to 4 players, 2 from each tribe, Luke and Janine and Tommy and Cass. But as I was watching the episode, I was looking at this ongoing storm thinking, that lightning looks serious and they are in water. And the producers must have thought the same thing once it got too bad, because they had to end the challenge, get everyone out of the water and back on the beach. With Grate now completely submerged under the water due to the rising tide, the 4 remaining players in the challenge have a choice to draw for rocks for the immunity necklace, or no one wears it at all. It's a no-brainer to draw for rocks since the 5-5 split that's about to happen isn't going to be affected by one of the 4 wearing the necklace or not, and the chance to slap it around your own neck is worth drawing for. Tommy finally wins a rock draw during the 3rd time around, but out of the 4 players drawing rocks here, Tommy is the least threat and the one who needed the necklace the least. At camp, the big conversation is staying Aussie Strawn versus World Strawn. Luke and Janine are terrified of being picked off, especially since Luke sees himself as the second biggest target on the Aussie tribe, right behind Kirby, who he is afraid the World Tribe might try to target. Luke does have a plan though, as he is hoping the World Tribe won't go to rocks for the likes of Lisa, and if they convince them to vote for Lisa, the World Tribe will split their votes 4-1, and the Aussie tribe will stay 5 strong and blindside Cass. This is very similar to a game move that was made against Wendell and Dominic during the pre-merge of Ghost Island. The World Tribe is also thinking of staying 5 strong and voting together here, and they're willing to go to rocks for any of their original tribe members in order to try not to lose a number advantage. The thing is though, they might not have to. It's very hard to stay Aussie strong when 2 ride or dies are now trying to kill each other, and Shawnee, the decoy vote during the entire pre-merge, wants nothing to do with the people who constantly had her head on the chopping block. Sarah is pitching to Suri and Parvati Kirby's name, and saying Kirby is a born leader, needing followers and taking out big threats who could oppose her reign, while Kirby is pitching them Sarah's name, saying that she is afraid of big threats and she doesn't view herself as one, and wants weaker players around so she feels safe in the game. This becomes an issue here, since Kirby is way more convincing than Sarah is, but Kirby is also way more dangerous and strategic, and this could be a way for her to get the World Tribe to vote for Sarah, and then the Aussies play an idol to negate the vote and idol out a World Tribe member instead. The international players in Cass, Lisa, and Tommy do not want to go along with this plan, and Suri can see why, since feeding one of your own so willingly in a split vote that could easily cause a begoning is highly alarming. This move could be the end to every single original Aussie tribe member, and Shawnee and Kirby are happy to oblige. But Cirie, in an amazing gameplay move, can just tell that even though they are ready to feed Sarah to the wolves, she's able to deduce that they are only willing to do so not due to strategy, but due to emotion, and that's genuine, something you can't fake. Kirby has been targeting people and controlling the votes due to how she feels, and nothing really else so far. Kirby is dominating the game, but if she gets the final two, I don't think Sarah, Luke, or Janine vote for her, and if Kirby is sitting next to an original World Tribe member, the rest of the World players might just vote for them, giving that player at least 7 votes to win the game by what I'm guessing. But I don't even think Kirby can get to the end by this point if this move goes through. The thing about this move is that Cirie knows that Kirby's plan hurts the Aussie tribe way more than it helps it, because if Kirby is lying here and the World tribe doesn't vote for Sarah, the idol that can be played on Sarah is useless. And if they don't vote Sarah and Kirby is telling the truth, then the Aussies are splitting their votes no matter what, and the World tribe can just stay 5 strong and vote out an Aussie, similar to Luke's plan earlier.
It's definitely a risky move, but I like Kirby. And if they're pointing at somebody from their own tribe, I'm in.
At Tribal Council, the language becomes clear that people like Luke that it's going to be a 5-5 split, with it being Aussie versus the Worlds. But then for people like Kirby and Cirie, it sounds like the tribes have started to intermingle, and it's no longer just that dynamic. It's now Survivor at its core. The vote comes, and it's a 3-3-4 vote split. And the loyal Aussies of Sarah, Luke, and Janine voting for Cass, with the loyal World Tribe at the International Alliance voting for Janine, with both groups thinking it's a clear 5-5 split, but the power players of Shawnee, Kirby, Parvati, and Cirie from the US and Aussie Treaty Alliance vote out Sarah instead, a person who had thrown Kirby's name out but still decided to stay Aussie strong in the end. This move has now made a friend out of Shawnee and Kirby for the World Tribe, and has allowed Parvati and Cirie to now not be outnumbered by the International Alliance members, putting them back in the power seat. And this episode was a great one, showcasing Cirie as a master at her craft, with a lot of fun moments in the action, a wild immunity challenge outcome, a suspenseful vote, and I didn't feel like I knew what was going to happen just by the lopsided edit, since this episode had great storytelling all around. I'm very excited for episode 6, and I can't wait to see the fallout in the aftermath of this huge merge vote, and one of my favorite merge votes I've seen in a while.
1 vote left. 5th person voted out, first member of our jury. Sarah.
You cheeky buggers.
Right off the bat, I gotta say that episode 6 is another great episode following off a banger of a merge. And I knew I was gonna enjoy this way more once all the storylines had a chance to converge and collide, once all the players were living on the same beach at the merge. We see that everyone is confused and feeling betrayed by the 4 players of Parvati, Cirie, Shawnee, and Kirby, due to them flipping the whole game on its head, throwing the preconceived notion that it was going to be an Aussie versus the World Paganing for whoever came out on top. But we see how Cass and Lisa are deathly afraid of Parvati and what she is capable of. Both of them seem like they'll continue to work with her, but when there's an opportune moment, they'll try to squash the Black Widow for good.
I'm gonna talk to Parvati. It's hard to talk to Parvati. She's avoiding us. I just said, let's go for a walk. And she's, oh no, I don't want people to see us. So we're just waiting for a name. Yeah, no, it's not how I want to do it. No.
At the Immunity Challenge, it's another major endurance challenge. I remember people saying that Australian Survivor had better challenges due to them being more physical. And I love endurance challenges, don't get me wrong, but they've been doing them since the Tony Boot onward. I know some of these players must have some puzzle-solving talent that they're just waiting to unleash, especially now that it guarantees them individual immunity, but production hasn't given them the chance yet. This endurance challenge, though, is holding up 15% of your pre-game body weight in each hand, which I'm sure is not that far off from the current body weight due to the length of the game, and needing to stay up there for as long as possible. Luke, just like with the previous endurance challenge, seems to be having a miserable time. Like, every second competing in these is nothing short of pure agony. Luke's wild reactions while participating in these might be good enough reasons to have endurance challenges from here on out, but I'd still like to see some puzzles. The most notable thing here is Parvati and Cass being the 2 remaining players left in the challenge, just like the Tony Boot episode. And if you recall, Parvati offers Cass a deal to step down and let her win, and Parvati will let Cass win in the next endurance challenge if it's just those 2 left. And now is the time to do so, and Parvati doesn't step down. I agree with Parvati here. I wouldn't step down after that big flip at the merge either, and also knowing that Cass had only jumped off in the previous challenge, not to honor the deal herself, but because she couldn't stay up any longer, which was a snake move on Cass's part anyways. She can't outlast Cass here, and Cass wins individual immunity, putting Parvati at risk at that night's Tribal Council.
Oh my God. Luke, so much pain. Oh yeah. Just fighting to stay in it. It's never pretty with Luke.
Back at camp, Luke and Janine finally started to get some traction in their games, when they both decided they need to start working with the world players in order to start gaining some control, and the two of them put in the work to start making these relationships. First, Luke already knows that Shawnee is ready to jump ship from Kirby after their first formal alliance together, which is great for his game. Next, Luke and Janine start to approach the world players, bring up the fact that Sarah, the person just voted out the previous tribal council and the first member of the jury, was Kirby's number one, and Kirby sniped her out the game without a second thought. This runs rampant throughout Saree and Parvati's minds, with both of them thinking about how bad they want to work with Kirby, but also realizing that she is a power player from her first season, a clear power player in this season, and now has the ability to lower Saree and Parvati's guard for a kill shot on them if Kirby so wishes. And this snowballs quickly for them. Now, Kirby does tell Parvati that she has nothing to worry about, since all Kirby wants is a ride or die relationship like Parvati and Saree have, something she thought she had with the winner of her first season who burned her at the final 5. This sounds like the truth, and I believe it is. But Kirby's definition of a ride or die is also flimsy, so if she hears her name at all and thinks it came from her closest ally, she will also strike first before asking any questions or confirming if it's even true, which ride or dies don't do. Like I said, Kirby's playing emotionally, and I think Saree and Parvati are starting to recognize it at this point. Kirby also tells Parvati that to build trust, Parvati needs to vote out a world member, maybe someone who they think is dispensable, like Lisa, just to prove that they are ride or dies together and build trust. This is hilarious coming from Kirby, the same person who burned Sarah, Kirby's ride or die at the time, during the third round. Sarah asked Kirby to vote out Shawnee, so the two could build trust because Sarah's already voted out someone she could have worked with, and Kirby ignores it and votes out George instead. Funny now she's trying to pull the same move with Parvati, but on the other side now, and this time it's the proper thing for Parvati to do because Kirby wants it. You might be able to tell, I'm not the biggest fan of Kirby. The biggest thing that sways Saree away from Kirby here is Janine, the Queen of Deals, approaching Saree with Kirby as the target of tonight's tribal council. Janine really convinces Saree of Kirby's ability to turn on her closest ally, with the slightest hint of paranoia. And Janine is saying that if they're throwing her name out right now, then they need to get rid of Kirby tonight before this comes back and bites them in the butt. With Janine telling Saree that she will defect from Luke, who is still on the train of getting rid of a world member, then the world tribe will have 6 votes for Kirby, which is more than enough to take over the vote. And the Aussie tribe can't even stop it with an idol since they don't know that an Aussie themselves is pitching one of their own again, so they won't even know to play one for Kirby to prevent it. This was great gameplay from Janine, since he seemed to really lull in Saree with no real effort, which was impressive to watch.
Aussies are scary. All of them are deadly. And then you got little old Lola here. It's like going to a buffet. Who do I feel like eating right now? Because Kirby's a big piece of meat. If I ain't gonna finish it, I better not start it.
At Tribal Council, it becomes a huge blindside for Kirby, and I knew it was going to be this way during the aftermath of the last episode. There was no way Kirby was coming out of that huge merge vote. Kirby is playing too hard, too quick, and she should realize that this much heat was going to force people to extinguish the fire before everyone got burned from it. And the people who aligned with her the previous round did just that. Janine and the World Tribe vote for Kirby, while Luke and Janine target Saree and Kirby targeting Lisa, with both the latter parties an attempt to weaken the World Tribe as a whole, but with another Aussie split vote, the World Tribe takes another Aussie member out, making it a 5-3 advantage. Hopefully, Janine can pull Luke onto her side, and if she is smart, will work with some of the international players to take out Saree or more favorably Parvati soon, but I don't see it happening. Poor Luke too, playing a strong social game, but he has misled his loyalties on every street, even with his closest ally still up to the game voting properly while he isn't. Just a brutal run for him so far.
Man, I got no idea how to write your name. If this lands, tonight's gonna be so funny.
As I said earlier, these last 2 episodes have been a great shift from the lopsided edit we got in the first 4 episodes, and nothing could have predicted how ruthless this game was going to be once they got to the merge. Alliances are being formed and destroyed in matters of hours, and the fast-paced nature of this game is definitely putting fear in everyone, forcing them to play extremely hard, extremely fast, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And I gotta say, not being forced to see journeys and sanctuary visits, or sweat and savvy, or any of this screen time eating garbage is such a fresh breath of air for any Survivor fan. We are just seeing camp life and challenges. We are just seeing camp life strategy and challenges, and not a second of it has been boring. And I haven't thought once, man, this episode would be way better if we had an 8-minute segment at the sanctuary, where good things happen. I am so happy we are just getting screen time on the players and not any production bullshit, and that's perfect for me. Now that we are in this part of the game too, with it being merged, There's just been very little misstep from editor production on the island so far, and it's been great to see, and it really gets you to remember what pre-New Era Survivor was like. If you like this video so far, please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out. I can't wait for the next 3 episodes myself, but please, let me know what you think of the season so far in the comment section below. Everybody grab your torches. I'll see you in the next one.